Banco de Chile, a financial giant with over 100 years of history, was known for its digital transformation and modern systems. But even the most advanced systems can become vulnerable if attackers know exactly where to look. The bank's internal network had been infiltrated weeks before the actual attack. Hackers had installed malware across multiple endpoints, malware designed not to steal money, but to serve as a distraction. IT teams were soon overwhelmed with false alerts. Computers were crashing, emails wouldn't send, printers printed gibberish. But these weren't the real problems. While Banco de Chile's IT team was distracted by a flood of technical issues, crashing terminals, frozen printers, and email outages, another operation was quietly unfolding. Deep within the bank's core network, unseen, unheard, but dangerously effective, the attackers had already breached the internal systems. But their real target wasn't email servers or customer databases. It was the bank's crown jewel, the SWIFT messaging platform. The SWIFT system, short for Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, is the silent engine that powers global finance. Used by more than 11,000 financial institutions across over 200 countries. SWIFT enables secure, encrypted communication between banks, allowing billions, even trillions, of dollars to move across borders every single day. And in the wrong hands, SWIFT can become the perfect weapon. Armed with stolen credentials and what appears to be insider knowledge, the attackers logged into SWIFT using legitimate access points undetected by internal monitoring tools. There were no alarms, no red flags. Everything looked normal. They began crafting and sending out forged messages, each one appearing as a legitimate international transfer order. But this wasn't a single smash and grab. It was a precision campaign. Each fraudulent transaction was carefully timed. One after another, millions of dollars were quietly funneled from Banco de Chile's reserve accounts to beneficiary accounts across the globe, primarily in Hong Kong and East Asia. These weren't offshore scams or phishing tricks. These were SWIFT-authorized wire transfers, authorized from within the bank's own environment. To the outside world, it looked like routine banking operations, but internally, something was very wrong. The hackers layered their movements across time zones, leveraging weekend processing delays and minimal oversight windows. Each transaction was masked under authentic credentials, making them nearly impossible to detect in real time. By the time the first red flags were raised, the money was already gone, converted, withdrawn, and laundered through shell companies and complex international financial channels. The attackers had turned the bank's trust in the SWIFT system into its greatest vulnerability. They didn't just break in. They acted from within, using the very language of international finance against itself. And the scariest part, everything looked completely legitimate. It happened fast. Faster than anyone at the bank could have imagined. In just a few hours, over $10 million quietly slipped out of Banco de Chile's accounts. No masked intruders. No vaults cracked. Just invisible code and cold calculation. The money didn't go to a single destination. It was fragmented, spread out, and wired to multiple foreign accounts, mostly in Hong Kong, Singapore, and South Korea. Once it landed, it barely had time to sit. Within minutes, it was withdrawn, moved again, or washed through shell companies designed to make tracing it nearly impossible. This wasn't an amateur smash and grab. This was a digital symphony of timing and deception. The hackers had exploited every possible advantage, especially gaps between international banking hours. They knew when Latin American banks would sleep and when Asian banks would begin their day. Transfers were initiated during these windows of silence hours. When verification teams were offline and interbank communications lagged. Banco de Chile's internal system still distracted by the chaos from the malware planted. Earlier didn't detect the withdrawals in time. By the time the fraud team even began investigating, the digital trail had already gone cold. Investigators would later uncover that the attackers had used legitimate banking infrastructure, carefully mimicking SWIFT traffic patterns and transaction structures. To the bank's internal systems, everything appeared compliant. Nothing triggered immediate suspicion. It wasn't until hours later too late that security teams sounded the alarm. By then, the attackers were long gone. No fingerprints, no traces. Just empty ledgers and vanishing wires. Most of the stolen funds had disappeared into what cybersecurity experts now call the financial underground, a web of shell companies, money mules, and cryptocurrency laundering techniques that stretch across continents. Authorities tried to freeze what they could. A small portion of the money was recovered. But the majority, it simply vanished. In the end, Banco de Chile had suffered one of the most sophisticated banking heists in South American history. And they hadn't even seen it coming. At first, the bank said nothing, no press release, no public statement, just silence. Behind closed doors, executives scrambled to assess the damage, still hoping, perhaps, to contain the storm before it hit the front page. But in today's hyper-connected world, secrets don't stay secret for long. Soon, the truth leaked. Banco de Chile had been breached. Not by insiders or hardware failures, but by a coordinated, high-level cyber attack targeting one of the most trusted systems in global banking, SWIFT. The breach bypassed every layer of the bank's existing security protocol firewalls, monitoring systems, fraud detection tools. None of it was enough. It was a wake-up call not just for the bank, but for the entire financial sector. Soon after, Banco de Chile released a statement. They had successfully recovered nearly $5 million of the stolen funds. But the rest, over $5 million, was gone into shell companies, offshore accounts, the digital void, the attackers still at large. Their names unknown, their location a mystery, no arrests, no confirmed origin, just traces and speculation. Security researchers began piecing together patterns, comparing the incident with other known attacks. And one connection kept surfacing: the 2016 Bangladesh bank heist. That attack, too, had targeted the SWIFT system. It had used a combination of fake messages, forged credentials, and malware-laced distractions. And it had resulted in $81 million stolen. There were parallels far too many to ignore. Some investigators pointed to Eastern Europe, others hinted at a state-backed threat actor from North Korea. a country long accused of orchestrating financial cyberattacks to evade sanctions. But there was no smoking gun, no confirmed fingerprints. Just a perfect digital crime, executed in silence. And so, the Banco de Chile attack joined a growing list of unsolved cyber heists, reminders of just how vulnerable modern banking systems truly are. Let's break it down. This wasn't a smash-and-grab operation. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't impulsive. What happened at Banco de Chile was a strategic, multi-layered, and highly professional cyber attack. Visual diagram builds on screen with four labeled phases. It unfolded in four key phases, each executed with precision, each building on the last. Phase 1: Reconnaissance. It began with reconnaissance, the silent phase. The attackers needed access, but not just any access. They needed the right access. They scanned Banco de Chile's internal systems, probed weak points, tested firewalls, and looked for misconfigured devices. Eventually, they slipped in quietly, likely through phishing emails, vulnerable endpoints, or stolen credentials from third-party contractors. Once inside, they mapped the infrastructure. They identified where the SWIFT system lived. They learned the patterns, the users, the protocols. Phase 2: Distraction. Malware. With the groundwork laid, it was time to create a diversion. Custom malware was deployed not to steal but to distract. Email systems went down, printers malfunctioned, terminals froze. It all looked like a massive internal failure. The IT team completely consumed. They focused all efforts on this sudden digital chaos. Meanwhile, the attackers had already moved to the heart of the operation. Phase 3: Swift manipulation. With the IT team distracted, the hackers accessed the SWIFT messaging interface. Using stolen or elevated credentials, they generated legitimate-looking wire requests. Each message was crafted to appear normal, matching the format, tone, and structure of typical transactions. Millions of dollars were requested in international transfers. But no one noticed. Everything seemed authentic. There were no red flags. Just business as usual. Phase 4: Exit and laundering. The final phase: exit and laundering. Once the forged transactions were processed, the money flowed quickly to foreign accounts, many located in financial hubs with high-volume transaction traffic. From there, it was withdrawn, broken up, and funneled through shell companies, layered corporate accounts, and possibly even cryptocurrency tumblers. By the time any of it raised suspicion, most of the trail was gone. Conclusion of the scene: each phase was silent, each move calculated, each second expertly timed. The attackers didn't just steal money, they outplayed an entire security infrastructure from the inside. After the smoke cleared, after the money was gone, the global banking world had to confront a hard truth, one they had ignored for too long: the SWIFT system. The sacred backbone of global financial transfers wasn't invincible. It could be turned against itself, used, abused, trusted for decades by over 11,000 institutions. Billions moved across borders every day with a tap of a key. And yet it only took one breach, one compromised system, one bank in Santiago, for the world to realize the whole network was vulnerable. If Banco de Chile could fall, what about the next? What about yours? It didn't take an army. No masks, no guns, no getaway cars, no explosions, no hostages. All it took was access, patience, precision, and a digital doorway left cracked open, just wide enough for shadows to slip through. Cybercriminals didn't break into a vault, they rewired it, turned the system against itself, and vanished before sunrise. The message was clear. This wasn't about money. It was about power, control. Suddenly, regulators worldwide woke up. The word trust was no longer enough. They demanded action. Zero-trust architecture was no longer theory, it became necessity. Banks began deploying multi-factor authentication, behavioral monitoring, continuous anomaly detection. And perhaps most importantly, they began watching their own systems as closely as they once watched everyone else's, because in the new age of crime, you don't need to storm the vault. You just need a keyboard. The Banco de Chile heist wasn't just a theft. It was a wake-up call. In the age of digital banking, there are no ski masks, ... No broken windows, no getaway cars. Just code, just silence. And millions gone in seconds. Criminals today don't need weapons. They need access, and a single mistake is all it takes. Since that day, banks around the world have hardened their defenses. SWIFT systems are more closely monitored. Cybersecurity is no longer optional, it's mission critical. But the game keeps evolving. New threats emerge, and somewhere, the next billion-dollar heist may already be in motion. Stay informed. Stay protected. Because in this digital battlefield, awareness is your best defense.